And now I would like to introduce our roundtable moderators. Erin McDonald, Erin's pronouns are they and them, is a cultural strategist and consultant based in Edmonton, Alberta, with a background in arts, funding, heritage, and community engagement. They work to create more inclusive, purpose-driven cultural system through their practice, EMC3 Consulting. Erin lives with acquired disabilities and brings both professional and lived experience to their work in access and belonging. They are passionate advocates for stories that connect people, policy, and place, and are honored to serve as today's English moderator for this national roundtable. E Stephanie Gamache est ergothérapeute depuis
Also, we have with
2010.
us today Stephanie Gamache,
La maîtrise, elle a développé
and
un
she has a
parcours de
master's
formation de
degree,
l'accessibilité pour les personnes
and
ayant des
she has
capacités
worked on
spécialisées.
accessibility
Au doctorat,
initiatives.
elle a élaboré de
She
nombreux
has
concepts
elaborated
d'aménagement
uh,
piétonnier accessible.
several developments in making things
Au
accessible
postdoctorat en
for
aménagement du territoire, elle
individuals,
s'est intéressée aux
and
situations d'impact
she's
sur la santé.
very
Elle a développé une pratique axée sur
she
l'accessibilité des environnements
sorry, it's inaudible for the
dans une
interpreter.
perspective
She was an
d'inclusion.
accessibility consultant at CIUSSCN from
Elle
2012 to
s'implique
2018 and has
également
been self-employed
dans
since then. She's
l'élaboration de
developed a
documents
practice
de
focused on
conception
the accessibility of
actuels
public
et
environments
techniques
from an
digitales
inclusion perspective.
afin de créer des environnements
She's also involved in the development
accessibles.
of Canadian and international design standards to create built environments that are more accessible to all.
Et maintenant, Erin, Stephanie, c'est à vous.
So it's over to you, Erin and Stephanie. Thank you. Thank you, Silvana.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, so I work at Manitoba Possible, and one of the core mission to Manitoba Possible is to eliminate barrier and to build a more inclusive, accessible society for everyone, where all people from different abilities and disabilities can participate fully in their communities. However, in my program is specifically focusing on newcomer with different ability and with disabilities. Our approach is kind of holistic and person-centered, and I will talk about it. So the one of our best practice is through our cultural facilitator or cultural broker, we call them. They play a vital role in building cultural, linguistic, and systemic, bridging cultural and linguistic and systemic gaps for both individual and their families, and with service providers as well. So they support the service provider to deliver their services in a culturally appropriate and responsive way. Especially for newcomers who come from a cultural context where disability is stigmatized and where their autonomy is very limited, where their voice is not used to be heard. The team work intentionally to shift these dynamics with the family and also to facilitate the support from the service provider gradually and to build like confidence and reclaim the voice for the individual or the client with with that disability. And for sure, this doesn't happen in day and 1 day or 1 month. It takes years because it's depending on the culture, depending on the age that the client come from and the family that is with and the openness for the family. So it does take a long time. Also, we have another approach like the language, the ASL and EAL classes for newcomers who are from the deaf community or the hard of hearing community. So many of them, they come with no without any sign language from their country. They are very limited. Many of them, they come without like they have never had any opportunity to go to education or to participate in their community. And so we support them to learn the ASL with EAL, and that doesn't happen easily. We have to we build an individualized plan for each student. So each student is considered as a class by themselves, and the teacher or the instructors would work. We have two instructors, ASL interpreter, and we have like a deaf interpreter, and they would work together first to build the basic knowledge for the student, and then lately they include the student to see what's the plan that the student have, what the dreams they have, where do they want to go with this education, and then they rebuild on the education that they already had. So through those both language, we try to amplify their voices and support them to have access to the society. Thank you.
So, hello and thank you to my colleague. I would like to present to you and introduce Vincent Tatum Fasu. He specializes in program management, community action, and services for vulnerable populations. Having supervised health programs in Cameroon for nearly 10 years after studying biomedical sciences and data analysis, now based in Canada, he has specialized in supply chain management, and he currently is a program coordinator at FRAP, an organization that welcomes newcomers. Thanks for being here. Can you give us an example of a success story or best practice that shows how your organization has effectively integrated immigrants with disabilities as active members of leaders, and what are the key factors that contributed to this success? We can't hear you, Vincent. Oh, hello. Can you hear me now? Yes, we do hear you. We hear you well. Well, thank you. Hello, Stephanie. Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting us speak. The FRAP is an organization that welcomes newcomers. They have the mandate of welcoming Francophones and Francophiles throughout Canada. And we serve Edmonton, Grand Prairies, as well as Canada and globally. And we also help establishments of schools outside of Quebec. So, with respect to the implications that FRAP has done for active members who are disabilities, we haven't yet had the opportunity to recruit someone in this situation in terms of a leader, but based on the needs that are done regularly by the establishment counselors who generally welcomes immigrants. The needs are identified of the client. And to see if we can come up with a collaborative plan to help them within their settlement. And in terms of the needs, we proceed with what we call the evaluation of their assets because they've got many assets that they bring with them. So we see them as colleagues. There's all kinds of opportunities. Sometimes throughout the process, they've had processes that they've brought from elsewhere. However, there are many that carry out volunteer programs. Or there's other efforts that we do to inform these newcomers. And we've had the opportunity of working with disabled people or those with limited mobility. And for example, be it in computer related skills and English related skills that has been able to accompany them. So we were able to do an online program with people who, after the last session, when they meet with someone, uh, these competencies or these capacities that are taught, they are not related to their physical condition. So we had the opportunity of having this a disabled person that was able to accompany certain events, and they within TI, IT rather, and we are able to accompany some people regardless of their uh, whether they're disabled, not disabled, in because we believe that there should be no limits on disabled people in terms of their impact. So we work with volunteers, which gives us a good opportunity to see the impact that can be offered within the services, and we hope they will become our colleagues. And that is what we are carrying out. So I like that you're talking about looking at people's strengths. And what are the different strengths that they bring to their interventions? That's important. So now I'm going to introduce you to Zora Bukabash, a retired general practitioner who's very involved in community and charitable work and is currently a member of the Algerian Community of BC Association. She's arrived in Canada in 2019 and has been involved with and trained by various French speaking organizations in BC. Thank you for joining us. Can you tell us about the role of volunteering and community involvement in developing your confidence as a leader? Well, thank you, Stephanie. Hello, everybody. So I'm delighted to be here with you today. You know that in 2019, when I came to Vancouver, I was a volunteer at Boussole. It's a francophone organization fighting against poverty. We went to downtown. We worked with homeless people and we brought like a warm drink, some food, and a smile. And we met up with people. We gathered volunteer groups in order to share our our work about to tell about what are the work that we were doing and also to do a little bit of network. So I worked with Le Relais Francophone. That's another francophone organization to participate in welcoming our newcomers. And I shared with them our what we're doing to help these immigrants settle. And then all these different activities have generated a feeling of satisfaction, a feeling of belonging within the community, a feeling of pride. And all of this strengthens one's self confidence. Also, I did do a training at the STE, which is the Economic Development Society here in BC. It's called Ascent. And they show us the labor market, how to do up a resume, everything related to employment. And I had the opportunity, thanks to this volunteer work, uh, to obtain a work contract. So volunteer work strengthens one's self-confidence and can bring about opportunities that are related to getting a job. Thank you so much. What I hear is that in the end, we can actually get a job. So thank you for being involved with this. And now I'm going to hand it over to Aaron. Over to you, Aaron.
So first I want to thank OCASI for inviting me to share the perspective of deaf and hard of hearing people, because often they are forgotten and excluded. So thank you for this opportunity. I really agree that when we look at deaf and hard of hearing immigrants, we see what is called a triple barrier: xenophobia, autism, and ableism. So when public narratives suggest that immigrants are a burden, immigrants with disabilities become even more marginalized and overlooked. At Silent Voice Canada, we see the impact every day. It shows up in hiring biases, fewer leadership opportunities, and hesitation from employers to invest in someone who communicates differently or requires accessible support. And we also must remember that many immigrants acquire hearing loss and other disabilities because of unsafe or high-risk jobs in factories, construction, shift work, or ongoing exposure to noise. Many of them are afraid to ask for safety equipment or accommodations out of fear of losing their job. Survival becomes more important than safety or self-advocacy. This has long-term consequences. People internalize these barriers and begin to doubt their own leadership potential because discrimination has been the norm. Silent Voice works to shift this. We provide deaf-led, lived experience support, creating a safe, accessible space for newcomers who often arrive with trauma or limited access to information. We communicate in ASL, International Sign sometimes, and connect with LSQ partners so clients can understand their rights, pathways to education, and employment options. We also advocate directly with employers and community partners so that deaf newcomers are not dismissed or referred away, but rather included. We partner with settlement and employment agencies to build their capacity to support deaf clients properly. We also build leadership from volunteer roles to peer mentorship, program input, and public speaking opportunities. We make sure that deaf immigrant success stories are visible at community events, panels, conferences, and through our outreach. For the long term, in terms of looking ahead, we're expanding our leadership development work, building toolkits for employers, and strengthening partnerships that open pathways not only to entry-level jobs, but to mid-level and leadership roles. Inclusion and advocacy are a long-term commitment, and Silent Voice is determined to keep amplifying the voices and leadership of deaf and hard of hearing newcomers.
Well, um, I really believe in like intersectionality in term of identity, in term of challenge, in term of even privilege. So I would talk to the newcomer experience. So, as I mentioned before, many people come with, and not all people, I have to be clear in that, but many people come from a place and a culture where they have a lot of hardship before even entering to Canada, where disability is stigmatized, where there are cultural norms around that. So, they need time to shape confidence, self advocacy, and to know about the possible expectation that they can get into the new society. Now, after arriving to Canada, here comes the multiplayer of challenge. We talked about the negativity toward newcomer, and it gets multiplayers, like it gets in multi layers because of the stigma of the disability, the language barrier, unfamiliarity with the system. So they many of them it's so hard to even communicate their rights with them. So things takes time, and I don't think it's enough to have the rights, but it's always very important to see and shape on how we can implement these rights, how we can get into these rights, not just words, in actions. And that needs a lot of work, that needs a lot of resources. It will take time, it doesn't come easily. But I think that's one of the main reason that people still feel isolated. It requires an ongoing education, enforcement, culturally responsive services. It's not an easy step. It's not a one dimension process. It goes into many dimensions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the question and the introduction. As you said, in Alberta, we don't have a provincial accessibility legislation. So I never had a legal framework to lean on. There was no provincial standards that guaranteed any sort of captioning, communication support, or even accessible academic environments. Because of that, I learned early on that if accessibility was going to happen, it would only happen because I pushed for it or put myself in a leadership position that other people can rely on me. At the university, for example, I'm one of the mature older students, and a lot of the younger students are with disabilities are afraid to talk, and they're too shy. So when they do notice a mature older student who's sitting in their class, sometimes sitting right in the front because I can't hear and I'm deaf, they're going to come up to me thinking that I'm the teacher assistant, only realizing, no, I'm just a student there. And when I build this sort of connection with the students, then they start to trust me. And I'm actually able to, again, because of my age, go to the department or go to the office and have communication and talk to them about the needs. And the university here has assisted and helped out. Now, I'm not going to say that it was easy. Accessibility has been inconsistent. For example, captioning wasn't always available. It's hard for me to hear um, when there's a lot of, even when there's no noise, but when there's just background white noise around, I can't hear anything. Note taking support wasn't often in, it wasn't always there, and if it was there, it was incomplete or inaccurate as per what an academic like myself would want. Um, and many academic meetings, workshops, and conferences weren't simply accessible in practice, even though institutions are constantly talking about inclusion. In my academic journey, another example is when I was in a graduate seminar. When the discussion moved rapidly from theoretical conversation to debate, it was I had to constantly um, make my face like really focus because I was trying to listen to what was happening when I couldn't hear what was happening, and captioning obviously wasn't provided. I ended up lip reading the entire session, and I don't know how much of it I actually understood. I'm happy to say that I'm a PhD candidate, and during my grad studies, I have a 4.0 GPA. But the reason for that is because the amount of work that a regular student who does not have a disability needs to put in, I needed to put in at least 3 or 4 times more work, even when it comes to listening. This experience doesn't actually build confidence, but it highlights the reality that I had to navigate, and I'm only assuming that others have to go through a lot more. And then I want to finish off by saying that my own leadership didn't come from legislation because it didn't exist, because there was none to rely on. It came from learning how to advocate myself and for others when the system, I don't want to sound mean, but when the system wasn't actually listening. So it came from turning to gaps and actually trying to figure out how to work through the system myself, studying how institutions include or exclude, how bodies are managed, and how communication shapes belonging. It came from the moments when others reflect my strengths back to me, students telling me that, thank you for helping us out, colleagues telling me that my perspective has opened their eyes. And even in my own research, I'm studying culture from the perspective of someone who is deaf and someone with a disability. I'm hoping that a lot of my research can extend application and understanding and perspective around disability and culture, at least within Canada.
Thank you. I'll direct my question to Vincent. Can I have your advice on cooperation, intersectional cooperation to foster inclusion and participation, a genuine participation of people with different capacities in order to amplify the pathway towards leadership for immigrants with disabilities? And like, how can we bring forth this cooperation as well? Can you hear me? Yes, you're on the line. Thank you so very much. I think if you want to be very practical, cooperation between organizations, in this case, in our domain, the cooperation between organizations who welcome new comers to Canada and people who offer support for these individuals, it's very important for them to find a way into the system, for their insertion into the system. I said it earlier, these assets, a spot should be found for you in the development on a daily basis. The cooperation that could be implemented with organizations who help the newcomers, who offer support or social services. So it should come across different spaces because capacities or skills have been identified ahead of time. So this cooperation allow to help these people find a way into the system. Let's take an example. We did some work with employability here in Edmonton. That's for people who are French speakers and they need to receive training offered only in English with employability. So during the training, for example, so there is an establishment, if you like, we identify a need and there would be a colleague that would be positioned to help that individual. It helps the wait time as opposed to wait and master English before receiving a training. So this cooperation between the FRAP and employability, it accelerates the process. And so my example aims to show that if we adopt this perspective, will be to be a lot easier to see that people settle well, and in order to value its talents that are already there and its values as well. So I think it's very important that it will give more content to these individuals who arrive and who have disabilities, no matter the disability, because it doesn't really matter all that much, because we know that for a lot of tasks, we just need skills and not the quality of the person who comes to do that task. So that's our understanding towards cooperation. That's a key element if we want these individuals with disabilities. These individuals, if they come from different countries, and these countries, they experience discrimination in their home countries. And because of that, disability sometimes is sufficient. They are not being offered opportunities to discover their talent. So, and I think in Canada, it should be a good thing to standardize the approach for these individuals to be assessed on the basis of what they do and not based on their physical attributes. I think it's a great example. It was a very concrete example, and turning it over now to Erin for the remainder of the program.
Thank you for the question. It's really unfortunate that many newcomers and immigrants with disability arrive in the land of opportunity, but it's not actually the case for them. There are still barriers that they experience in terms of services not being accessible, policies don't reflect what they actually need, and many of those and to make those opportunities fair and inclusive, Canada needs to take a few important steps. First, immigration processes must be fully accessible from day one, including access to sign language at interviews, appointments, and all communication stages. Second, we need to shift away from seeing disability and accommodations as a cost. Immigrants with disabilities bring skills and experience and value to Canada, and policies must reflect that. Thirdly, systems like credential recognition and settlement services must include accessible assessments, interpreting, captioning, and deaf-led programs as a standard part of service, not something extra or optional. At Silent Voice Canada, we try to make opportunity real for deaf newcomers every day. We provide services in American Sign Language, International Sign, and connect with LSQ partners so people can understand the information they need. We help newcomers navigate the system, find housing, look for employment, and learn their rights under laws like the AODA and the Accessible Canada Act. We also work with community partners, legal clinics, and employment programs to make their services more accessible. And we create opportunities by involving deaf newcomers as peer mentors, facilitators, and community educators. Now, looking ahead, we want to build a deaf and hard of hearing newcomer leadership hub, which would allow for more opportunities. This will be a place where deaf and hard of hearing people could come together to develop skills and then we continue partnering with, we would have training partners to support deaf and hard of hearing clients and work with government to help make the immigration process more accessible and inclusive. When deaf and hard of hearing immigrants have full access, not just basic survival, Canada becomes stronger, more inclusive, and more aligned with the values that it promotes. Silent Voice Canada is committed to helping make that happen.
I can it's an interesting I really appreciate what you have said, Connie. Canada's image doesn't always match its system. There's a contradiction between the branding and the practice. Many times families are denied um, opportunities because a child has disability, even autism, Down syndrome. I heard of situations where permanent residency was denied because of um, disability, despite Canada claiming inclusivity. Skilled immigrants with disabilities are unable to get accommodations at work, leading to underemployment. Um, my, we have an inside joke over here. When I was applying for school, they said the professor said, "Well, the system doesn't really work for you. You'll get in. You got to really advocate, but you have a few problems here. Number one, you're old, and number two, you have disabilities. So because of that, the system isn't really going to be working for you. The system's been created for a particular group of people, because of which we really need to advocate." There's a few recommendations. For example, I think it's more about communication and understanding and not just buildings. Ramp access means nothing if people can't participate, putting it that way. Auto captioning in all online meetings, standard interpreters, using accessible formats. I went to watch a movie with my wife the other day, and I heard only 30% of it. I was trying to figure out how to find the captioning on my phone, and it didn't really work. I saw the good pictures. Fund migrant-led, disability-led initiatives is a good point. Like programs designed by disabled immigrants, and just disabled individuals. Um, it's not enough that we're on panels. It would make more sense that we are part of the decision making committee, which would help Canada live up to its image of land of opportunity.
Briefly, Zora, if you have a way perhaps to give us a summary of how we can better promote active inclusion in the decision-making process. With mine touched on it in one of the solutions he offered, but how do you see this to be promoted? Thank you, Stephanie. I'd like you to repeat, yes. How can we promote active inclusion and for migrants with disabilities and have a concrete role in the decision-making process? At the level of the organizations, yes. The organization must focus on the skills of the individual, on the competencies, and not focusing on the disability. For recruiting purposes, all methods of job offer, interviews, all of that should be inclusive, and that individual. So, for example, a job offering or a job offer that is designed for everyone, for someone who can see, for example. So just for covering for everyone. And provide means perhaps towards accommodations, job accommodation, and encourage people to lead the careers and to allow individuals with disabilities to feel better in the job market, train staff as well.
Well, we all have our personal biases, whether they're conscious biases or not conscious biases. We all have them. But we have to have an inclusive mindset, and we have to do work as people before being in an organization. We have to be aware of these things, and that's what I have to say about it. Well, thank you so much. And in fact, I think that that's a really good note to have an open mindset to better understand the needs and provide the tools so that everybody can flourish within their life and work. Thank you. So now we also have an opportunity. Oh, sorry, there's a question. I'm just getting ahead of myself. If there are people who do have questions, please don't hesitate to write them in the chat box. For now, I don't see any questions here.
Non, pas de questions.
No questions for me. So in this case, we're going to proceed. So today it's an opportunity that OCASI presents a special guide. It's called the Settlement Services Guide for People with Disabilities. And so this is for newcomers. It's an essential services. It has documentation with respect to affordable and accessible housing, transportation, food banks, and other aspects. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague who's just going to give us a quick review about the guide.
Merci, Stéphanie.
Thank you, Stephanie.
OK.
Well,
Je vous propose un
So-
tour,
here I
une
am
visite
offering
guidée.
you a guided visit, a guided tour, so to speak.
On va commencer
And we're going to
pour
start with
le site en français,
the French website.
mais c'est comme un
But
miroir.
it's like a mirror image. Inaudible.
Un moment. Et voilà.
And here we go.
Vous m'écoutez correctement
Can you
maintenant?
hear me well
Parce que je
now?
sais que
Because I know that
au début,
earlier when I
j'avais quelques
spoke,
difficultés. C'est
there were
correct?
some difficulties. Yes, we hear you very well. Thank you so much.
Et voilà.
And here we go. That's
L'initiative
it.
pour
So this
l'accessibilité
initiative
d'OCASI
for
est
accessibility
ravie
by
de vous
OCASI is
présenter
delighted to share this with you.
ce guide
This is a
de
guide that
services
we have
d'établissement
of
pour
settlement
les immigrants,
services
migrants,
for
réfugiés
immigrants,
et
refugees,
nouveaux arrivants en situation de
newcomers
handicap
that
ou
are
sourds
disabled.
et à l'intention des prestataires de
And
services
this
aussi
is also
partout
for
au Canada.
service providers and immigrants throughout Canada.
Dans la page principale,
On the landing page,
l'accueil,
there's
vous avez le menu
a
avec
welcome
les
page, and you have a
5
menu here. Now that's got five
principales
main
catégories de
categories.
services.
That is service
Aussi,
categories.
dans la page
Likewise,
même,
on this same page,
vous avez cette
you have
catégorie,
7
plus
categories,
une 6e catégorie de services supplémentaires.
supplemental
Et vous pouvez
services.
naviguer
And you can navigate
de la page
from
en cliquant
or you can
les-
navigate to the
les
respective
boîtes
page by
qui vous
clicking on the box.
intéressent
And
ou
you that.
choisissant
And
les
you can
options
choose the different
du menu.
section that you're interested
Par
in that is on
exemple,
the menu. For example, if we take,
si on va voir des informations
if we want to have
concernant les
transportation
transports,
related information,
cliquer
I click
là
here. And
vous savez
and you
trois
have
options
3 different options here.
ici dans le menu et
And
aussi
in
dans la
the
page
menu and
même,
also on the page itself.
comme
For example,
comment faire pour obtenir une
how
vignette
do
de
we
stationnement
obtain a parking permit?
ou pour demander des
Or
financements pour l'adaptation d'un
applying for
véhicule
funding for vehicle adaptations
ou pour
or
le transport
for
adapté.
adapted transportation or paratransit.
Si on se rend sur
Now,
cette page,
when we
il y a une définition, une
go
petite
in
explication
deeper to
de
this
que ça veut
page, there's
dire
a explication
le
telling
transport
us
adapté.
why adapted transportation, what it is, first of all, and why it's important.
Pour les informations de
And
comment faire la
also,
demande d'un
how do
service
we
comme
make a
ça,
request of this type of
il faut que vous rentrez
adapted
dans
transit?
la page
You have to go to the
de la province
respective
ou
page of the
territoire
province
où
or
vous êtes.
territory where you're
Et
located,
vous avez le menu
and you have
à
a menu
gauche
on the left-hand side,
et aussi dans la page
and
même.
also in
Pour
the page
exemple,
itself. For example,
si j'habite à
if
Halifax,
I live in Halifax, so
je veux
what I'll do here in that
chercher
case is I'll
dans
choose
Nouvelle-Écosse. En
Nova
cliquant,
Scotia. I click there,
on a des
and
informations
we
pour
have
les grandes
information
villes.
for the larger cities.
Celui-là est Halifax.
And this one here is Halifax.
Now, if you feel more comfortable in English, you can just click on top right, the main navigation menu, and then that brings the information in English. For example, if you are interested in learning more about documenting disability, you can click there from the top menu. And again, there's a brief description of what we mean by this and the process to get the certifications you may need to apply for example, the disability tax credit. And again, the information is on the page, but you can also navigate through the menu on the left. And at any point, if you want to go back to the main page, the home page, you get there by clicking on the name of this guide. And if you or your clients need help in navigating this, we recommend that you visit the before you start page or the tips for users. Again, if you are more comfortable in French, il faut que vous cliquez dans français sur le
Then
menu de
you have to click
navigation
on French up here at the navigation menu on top.
ici, dans
Over
le coin.
here, this one, it's up in the corner.
At all times,
And
you have the option to reaching out to us at the Accessibility Initiative. You can send us a message. If you have any feedback or comments about this guide for you as an immigrant with disabilities, or you as a service provider supporting immigrants with disabilities, we would love to hear from you. So you're more than welcome to send us a message, again, in English or in French. And if you or your clients are faced with problems or difficulties in accessing services, we invite you to fill out a report form that actually has to do with the issues you may encounter. That could be difficulties, discrimination, inaccessibility of the services that are detailed in the guide. So we would love to hear from you, because that's the only way we can maintain this website as a relevant resource for everybody. And Tekla just shared the links to the guide in English and in French on the chat. And of course, this information will also be included in the follow-up email for everybody. So if there's a question.
I'm sorry, I don't see the hand. Yes, did you have a question?
I just want to say that maybe that's because it's the word we use in French, but if we go to the English side, it is disability. No, it's the one that is used in incapacité. Stephanie. Mm-hmm. Thank you for the comment. And Erin, sorry.
No, thank you. It's important that we take the time to answer questions like that. And also, there are differences between the languages we speak and share, and it's helpful to understand. So I learned something today too. We are so grateful for each of you being here with us today, sharing this space and this time. We hope that you found our session today informative and helpful and hopefully inspiring on this day, the International Day for Persons with Disabilities.